I am Games, and this is a podcast.
Oh my god, I am also Games, and I'm in the podcast too.
Hooray! Fancy seeing you here.
So, we just downloaded, out of sheer curiosity, each of us independently, this new game called Apex Legends, created by the people who made Titanfall 1 and 2, neither of which we played, but have heard are good. And so we were like, yo, I want to play a shooter game that's free. And I gotta say, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't... For anyone who doesn't know, if you've been living under a rock, Apex Legends is the latest in a series of PUBG clones, Battle Royale games.
Yes.
Where it's a single map, there's like 100 people, and you all dive in, and you
There's only like
run
6
around.
people, though, in this Apex game, at least from the games that we played. We were on teams of 3, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Unless I was misinterpreting something.
Well, there's teams of 3, but there's like a ton of people on the map at the same time.
Why is it so hard to find anybody
Because
then?
it's a huge map.
It doesn't look that big when you're falling into it.
Well, perspective's an interesting thing.
I guess so. So this game, my first match, I drop in, and I spent 7 minutes looking for someone to shoot at. Finally found someone and had a very brief stint of shooting, and then I died, and then the match was over, and I got 10 points and a loot box, and I went, what the fuck, how is this a video game?
Yeah.
My second match, I came in and was killed. I tried to, I figured out that you could land, like, right, where the action's happening, follow all the guys, figure out what's going on, and I was killed before I picked up a weapon. And then you played a match.
Oh god, yeah, my match, because I did my match on I Am Games.
Yes.
And so I know from what little I understood of the game is that like someone is like the squad leader, they're randomly assigned, and they control where you land, and you can break off from them or stick with them so you kind of stay with your squad. So
Right.
he just kind of directed me, my guy automatically followed him. And then my whole point was that I want to stay squatted up because I don't know anything about this game. I don't know how it plays other than the crappy little tutorial. So I'm going to stick with my guys. They're going to show me the ropes without, actively doing it.
This might have been the wrong thought process, because I think that it probably seeds you based on rank. So probably all of you had never.
We were probably all dumb. So I was just following these guys around. It was like 10 minutes of just wandering around, grabbing loot crates, picking up weapons.
Yeah.
And then they just walked us all off the edge of the map and we all died at the same time.
Yeah, literally the guy just jumped off a cliff into the water and died. And then both you and the other guy followed him.
Yeah. So it was... And then I immediately uninstalled the game.
Yeah. I just, well, when I heard, first of all, my thought going in, I'm like, okay, maybe if you play enough of this and you see more angles of it, but there's only one map.
Right.
So you already know what the game is. If you've played it once, you know basically that it's a game where you run around, you gather loot, and then you shoot at people when you run into them, and it's not like a Halo or something where you have like a long protracted shootout. You die pretty quick, and then it's over. And then if you die, you have to just watch your teammates from their perspective for a while, and it's possible that one of them can revive you, but if not, then a typical game can be that you spawn in, try to find a weapon, get killed, then watch another guy play a video game for however long it takes for them to die or save you, and then the match is over.
Yeah.
And I just, there was a thing one time, a big deal was made out of the fact that in American football, there's only 13 minutes of actual action in a 3-hour game. And that's because of the sheer amount of commercials, all the downtime of players just standing around. Only 13 minutes is there actually plays being made, people hitting each other on the field. I think there might be less in Apex Legends.
Right. Well, unless you're, around to the end. This is a complete non sequitur, but based on what you just said, do you think there are football supercuts on YouTube?
Oh, That would be interesting. I might make football watchable for
Yeah,
me.
I'd be interested to watch just a 13-minute
Yeah.
football game in 13 minutes.
I honestly think, like, when I think about what a football game consists of, like, so many watching ads, I think I might be more entertained by watching ads than just running around a huge fucking empty map picking up loot for 7 minutes. Like, especially when you realize that it's the same map. Because, like, at least at first, like, when I was first running around on there, I was kind of, taking in the sights. Like, it's pretty. It looks pretty nice. There's different areas, different things to explore. But, like, once you've seen all that, then it's, that is now just logged into the back of your mind. Of, like, what is the layout of the map, learning your way around.
I don't think games like this are designed with appreciating art direction in mind. Like, this game is a sport. That's what these kinds of games are. The map, it's like why don't they play football on different maps? Like, because it's football. The point is, like, you're applying a certain set of skills in a controlled environment. And it's the same thing with a battle royale game. It's like, this is the map. You learn the map, and you get better at knowing how the map works and interacts with all the elements of the game, and that's the point. The problem is, I find that incredibly boring.
It's a weird feeling, and I guess that I don't know if MOBAs are what led to this, because MOBAs are like, the matches are like 45 minutes long, and half of it is not fighting. It's just like, building up until you are at the point where you can fight. But at least those involve, like, frenetically clicking around the screen, trying to, like, do all kinds of, like, really like upper level tactical shit. Right. This is, I mean, it's a run and gun shooter game at heart. So, like, even if you do, learn the ins and outs of the map, learn the ins and outs of the equipment, at the end of the day, the encounters come down to you and another guy shoot at each other for about 6 seconds, until one of you is dead.
Yeah, I mean, the football analogy is pretty apt, because, like, on the one hand, I can understand the one map appeal, because it's like back in, like, the CS 1.6 days, everyone just played Dust 2, because that was, like, the map. And if you were playing Counter-Strike, you'd play on Dust 2 for the most part, or, like, D-Nuke. Those are, like, the two maps people would play. And that's because they were just really balanced, and there was lots of things you could do to learn how to, like, go through the maps. But those maps were small, and you'd always find somebody instantly, It was just like, it was a skirmish that lasted a couple minutes, and there were only a couple places people would go. And the great thing about CS in that respect is that if you're doing the bomb defusal, like, eventually the terrorists would plant the bomb, and you'd have to go to one of two places, and the climax of the match would happen.
Yeah.
With this, you can wander around for 15-20 minutes and just not see anything, because you just might not be where anybody is, or you just keep missing people because there's so much open space.
Yeah.
And you're still just a guy, and you still move around pretty much like just a guy. So it's not like you have, like, vehicles you can get into, like something like Battlefield, where you can make travel through these big maps, like, more bearable. It's just you're on foot.
I mean, I love Halo multiplayer. That always had huge ass maps and huge teams, and, like, you had so much more excitement from moments where, like, say a guy's almost got you completely killed, but then you fucking managed to, like, just barely scrape into this building and then get into a warthog and drive to the other side of the map and fucking find an invisibility cloak and, make a complete recovery. And
I mean, because, like, even like the biggest maps in Halo, like Blood Gulch or Coagulation or whatever, they're like 1/100th of the size of this map. Because, again, this is for 100 or so players.
I mean, it feels like there's so much time spent basically jungling, like, what you would do in a MOBA, like, just running around, gathering loot, and I don't know if that it's, like, I don't know if it's sort of like a, because I don't think you keep the loot between playthroughs. Like, you have to gather it every time. And, like, afterwards you'll get a loot crate, like a thing that, you gather points through the match, and then it just unlocks more stuff for you outside of the game.
Yeah, but it's all cosmetic, I believe. I don't think there's game.
No, there is. You get, like, different guns and shit, right? I think.
I don't know. I know a lot of people throw shade at games giving you loot boxes with bonuses in game now because it can break the balance.
That's true. Maybe it is all cosmetic. In which case, what the fuck do I care about it? Like,
sure.
What? Like, I understand this feeling of making progress by way of like you keep getting points from playing matches, and that is filling out your checklist of all the things that are available.
Yeah.
But there's nothing gratifying to me about filling out a checklist of just shit that I have no real reason to like want that stuff like inherently as a player. Like, if it was, let's say that there was a skin that has like a really cool aesthetic, I could see maybe like setting out with the goal of trying to get that skin. But even at that point, I'd have to already be invested in the game, and like I just don't understand the core investment. It's like, how do people get hooked on a game like this?
I'm not really sure.
What is it that like even with something like Overwatch, I understand, because Overwatch has more complicated tactics. It's got smaller levels. You're gonna have an encounter a lot quicker. You got
instantly respawn when you die.
Right, and the characters are like really interesting and attractive. You know, like you got strong character design. So even if you were playing just because you like this character and you just want to be that character and shoot guns at the enemy, like I get that. In a game like this where you're just playing as like these very generic stereotypical characters who like they all have different purposes and like mechanics, and maybe when you get into really high level play then that manifests more, because like right now playing it just a couple of times it feels like, man, you just run out and get shot and die, or shoot somebody and they die, and then it's like over.
That's my problem.
I don't know how long the matches can get
with this entire genre in general, the battle royale genres. There's so much downtime, and just like to get even decent enough, you have to like spend so much time slogging through just like 10 minutes of nothing. You get sniped and then you gotta redo it.
I didn't even feel like I had the chance to learn anything about the game, and the match went on forever.
Right.
And
at least when you're playing Overwatch or Counter-Strike, like it's like, 30 seconds to a minute of like dying and respawning, and like you're picking up things as you go quickly.
Or I'm thinking of a game we also played tonight, Hawken, which was just like we installed it and then immediately we're just like in a match killing people, and it was just dank. It was like, hey, I got a mech, I'm shooting at guys, I kill a bunch of dudes, it's fun. Instantly, I die, I respawn, I'm back to killing guys.
It was such a great contrast, because we did the tutorial in Apex Legends, and it's one of those stereotypical like, hello, welcome to the game. I'm going to teach you the thing. Go over to the chest and open up the crate to get a gun. Hit this button to shoot the gun. And it's like, and you got to sit there and wait for the guy to finish talking before you can actually do the things. Hawkins tutorial is like, hey, do you want to play a tutorial match? It's like, yes. And it's just a match, and it just shows you the controls.
Right.
And you just play the fucking video game.
I was so annoyed with the tutorial in Apex because I did not have the sound on my TV on. So it was just me like doing the things that it says on screen and then standing there in silence for a minute while a robot gestures, I'm sure you could probably turn on subtitles, but I didn't have them on by default. So I was just like, well, this is fucking boring. And it's like a shame because the raw mechanical feel is like good. Like the guns feel good. There's,
way better than Fortnite. There's
a decent variety of guns, it seems like.
I think.
They have...
we haven't really gotten to see a lot of them.
Yeah, well, the ones that I saw seemed like they weren't just standard typical guns. There was like some weird guns in there, and they sound good, they feel good to use, but when do you get to fucking use them? Yeah. I kept picking up more guns along my way, and I was like, oh, I want to test out this gun.
There's just nothing.
I couldn't shoot it at anything.
You're just running around.
And by the time I found some enemies, it was like... Because I think I was the last guy left on my team. And so I ran into two enemies. And I happened to have a supply crate in front of me that I could use as cover. So I had a skirmish with them for a little bit where I'm like shooting on one guy. And then I'm like, okay, this gun's not really effective. Let me switch to the... Oh, I'm dead. Well, I guess I'm going to have to wait 7 more minutes before I get to test the other fucking gun.
I feel like the further away we've gotten from PUBG, the less this entire structure makes sense. Because I haven't played PUBG, so I'm talking out of my ass. But just like from looking at the game, it's a semi-realistic urban environment. And so the idea, like I think the draw to this genre initially is the sense of tension
Yeah.
and finality. Because you start with nothing, you have to find things,
Right.
and like it's about moving slowly, being not like drawing attention to yourself and getting the drop on people.
I mean, my first impression of it when I saw PUBG was that it was more along the lines of like those massive survival action games like H1Z1 that have
Right.
been so big, where like it was more about like the realism factor and the idea that like you'd have to stake out or like really be careful about making your next move. I don't know how much PUBG is like that, but it like, and maybe Apex is more like that than I give it credit for, but like the mechanics feel like a fast-paced like Call of Duty shooter
Right,
game.
when you can like slide down a hill
Yeah.
really fast, and like your gun,
you can climb like walls,
clamber
and
ledges,
fucking,
and go all
and
ham.
it's like, oh man, moving around is fun, but I'm not doing anything.
It's like they're trying to get that like cartoony kind of like tone of Overwatch combined with this like gritty survival kind of realism, like stakes kind of game of PUBG, and it's like they don't really combine all that well. They're like two different goals.
I mean, I think that this game is possible because like the meta is established. It's like at this point it's not about making a game that necessarily makes the most sense. It's just about making a better version of the game that exists.
Right.
Cuz like, you know, Fortnite surpassed PUBG because it's more inviting to, you know, a certain crowd. And Apex is like, oh, what if we like honed it? What if we made the weapons feel better? What if we made the environments like just like graphically superior, like slightly better mechanics? Maybe it's a better map. Like, I'm sure that there's a reason that people are so excited about it as another in this thing, but like you said, as we get farther away, it's like this is no longer about the core idea of why this game existed. Now it's about
just
making
like,
another one.
We have 100 guys on a big map, and it's like, well, there was a reason for doing that initially,
right?
and like we've kind of lost track of it. And like, to be fair, the idea never appealed to me to begin with.
No,
you know,
me neither.
Just because like all the downtime, like the
first
idea
time I watched somebody play Fortnite and I saw how long you have to drop in from the sky, I was like, why would you ever sit through that? Like, this is a video game. You can, there are games you can play, like again, the mech game we played, where it was just action. There's never a moment you're not shooting at somebody or, you know, positioning yourself to not get shot at. And like, I just don't know why you would want to play a game that had so much downtime. And like, the conclusion I kind of came to was that it's about wasting your time, because
maybe
modern media, I feel, is moving in the direction of, and even we are doing this right now by doing a podcast, because I think of YouTube and its evolution, how it used to be that if you made a video over 10 minutes long, nobody was going to watch it. Like 3 to 5 minutes was considered the ideal length of YouTube videos because of the fact that people just saw it as a waste of time to watch that much YouTube. But then I think once people who had like who just like YouTube style content more than TV style content started cutting their cable and watching YouTube, they just wanted more of it because suddenly they don't have TV taking up as much of their time, or video games or whatever else. So as people become more desperate to fill more time, and when we're in an industry now where, when I think of the PS2 era, you were never hurting for new games to play, and now we're in an era where, you know, the AAA market has gotten so bloated that only a few games are coming out, you know, that people are hype about, and like people make it out like it's a great year if 8 amazing games came out, and it's like, dude, look at the fucking late 90s, early 2000s. It would be a great year if 50 great games came out, you know.
It's a lot
and so
different. Well, I mean, it's also because I think it's two reasons. The first reason we have such less games because it's prohibitively more expensive and complicated now to make a game, but also the business model is milk a title as long as possible. You know, like Apex Legends is a free game, but they want people to keep playing it and keep spending more money. Well, like, that's the new model.
That model works for everything because people will do it. Like, it would be, I think that there was a time where people were not willing to to do that. Like, people just thought,
Sure.
oh, that's a waste of money to play these like freemium games.
It's like the money has shifted the same way that people's perception of YouTube has shifted.
Right.
It used to be like, oh, I'm not spending more than $50 on a game. To be like, I'll blow a few grand on this game over the course of a year. Why not?
Because they only play that one game.
Right.
And it's just like, you find yourself in a position where there's not enough competing for your time for you to bother with with other shit. Like, when I think about again, YouTube, it's like, even I like have fallen victim to, like, I will watch lots of boring content just because it fills more of my time, and like, making great content takes too long and people aren't incentivized enough to do it. And like, I would pay more money for, like, I would be willing to pay to get things that are better, but not a lot of people would. I think there's a lot of people who just, like, they will let themselves get nickel and dimed over an expanse of time, but like, they don't want to throw down $60 for anything, you know? Because like, if you think about like throwing down $60 for a 10-hour game, and maybe you'll play through it 4 times, versus this game that is free, that will give you hundreds of hours, and maybe you'll throw a few dollars at it every once in a while.
Right.
But like, that few dollars is enough to make insane bank for the company. If they
and
have
the
a
company
big enough
knows
player
that they're
base.
going to have their whales that are going to throw thousands and thousands and thousands, and that
Right.
more than makes up for the people who will never play.
And I think the question has always been, how can we get more money from people for less effort? Like, if you look at a game like like an MMO, like, those have to create a huge world. They have to do like insane amounts of balancing and coming up with new content. They have to introduce new expansions every once in a while, and like, they charged a lot more up front from people, or you had to pay for the game and the subscription fee. Then they started becoming free to play, but like, or free to own but buy a subscription, or even just free to play entirely but buy microtransactions. But like, those games had to provide so much more than these games where literally they just have to make a map. It's like, a guy could throw this together in assets that they already had from Titanfall in a fucking weekend, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they have to manage one map, a couple characters, and they can just keep trickling out updates and patches and new content, and it's just much smaller in scope. But just because it's a sport and not an experience, it has basically infinite replay value, and it's just like the min-maxing they get on like the effort to reward is astronomical. So from a business perspective, of course it makes sense to do that, but like, I like art. Fuck you.
Exactly. It just it concerns me, because I see this happening because of the fact that there is such a big fjord between like what is it feels like everybody's either trying to make the cheapest or most expensive thing. Like, there's no middle ground. There's no, like, we have the indie market, and that's all like, individual artists trying to eke out a living, or or just shitty fucking games that get cranked out onto the fucking e-stores.
It's the same thing on a smaller scale.
Right. But like, it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to make every game fucking have to sell 10 million copies. Make games that only need to sell like fucking 300,000, and that's still enough money that you can make a bigger fucking game than goddamn, than a one map game where you spend 7 minutes before a shootout happens.
Sure, but I just think at the end of the day, the people calling the shots want to make as much money as possible more than anything else. Like, again,
but they're not even succeeding at that. Like, if EA is reporting a loss on a game that's fucking sold 7 million copies, it's like, well, if you had cut the budget for that in half, like, let's say that they had only needed to sell 1 million to recoup their budget, they could have could have made a game that was just half as expensive, and they would have had a huge.
The thing is that EA is still
terrible.
EA is still posting massive record profits right now. Like, they sold less than expected, but they still made all their money back and then some. It just wasn't enough.
So it was a profit, just not what they wanted.
EA is pulling in like billions in microtransactions. Like, but the problem is that, again, like with stakeholders and stuff, they want constant growth. So if it isn't bigger than the last game, it's a failure. It doesn't matter if you recouped your costs and then some. It's just a nightmare business model that
It's
just
what
is
happens
unsustainable.
when people take a business mindset to an artistic medium.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. You
Well-
can't. It's not infinitely scalable. Art is
Right.
not infinitely scalable.
Well, I mean, EA's realizing that the hard way. Their stock's down 43 fucking %.
Well.
Get fucked.
Well, if we are wrong about battle royale games, let us know. Like, explain to us what is the appeal, because we're just telling you guys what we think. Obviously, we are not the arbiters of what is good or
No,
bad.
This is clearly not a review.
I
of
am
Apex
games
Legends.
and these are opinions is the motto of the channel, and if you don't know what that means, then you should not leave a comment.
Yeah.
But,
TLDL. Too long, didn't listen. We're way too fucking doomer for this shit.
Yeah, we're too old for this Zoomer garbage. All right, everybody. We're going to try to make more of these and keep you guys entertained. Let us know what you think about these podcasts. If you think they're interesting, we're going to try to put them out more frequently because it's just one more attempt to make this channel successful, which we have not done yet. I am Be the Games You Want to See. I am Games.
I am also Games.
Signing out.